You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, Patreon members, and hello, Chris. Welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me back again.
Yeah, man. Seems like it's a regular thing now. So thank you for helping out. And this episode is your show because we are going. I asked you to come up with a topic to kind of cover. And so this is episode 634, where we're going to talk about the prequels and sequels from the hype perspective. So I've labeled this the final hype because typically the final hype show happens before something premieres for the first time. And yet we're talking about two movies or two things that have happened in the past. So I really wasn't sure what to call it. But nonetheless, the idea here was to kind of talk about all the hype that we had leading up to the prequel films, probably more and specifically targeted around episode 1, right? And then talk about the prequels or the sequel hype that we saw from 2015 and what that was like at the time. And then kind of compare the two, talk about, which one maybe had the most hype, which one were Star Wars fans anticipating more than the other. Now, as we started talking about this more and as we were working on the show notes, it dawned on me that, holy crap, this is going to be a 2.5 hour episode. So pulled like an audible, made a quick change here. Tonight's episode is really going to be focused on the prequel trilogy. And then we'll come back and do the sequel trilogy next Sunday on the Patreon show. And at that show, we'll actually talk about, comparing the two and talk about the differences and which one had the more hype and the more anticipation. So that's kind of the show formats. Chris, I think it's a great topic. So thank you for coming up with it. But out of your own words here, what was it about it that excited you the most to talk about something like this?
Well, what excited me to talk about it is that it's always been a topic of conversation between me and my friends that are hardcore Star Wars fans. It always seems to come up in just general conversation of comparing the hype train or the final hype as the Cantina Cast has it put, the time before episode 1 and then the beginning of the prequel era and the time between episode 7 before The Force Awakens premiered. There are a lot of similarities, but in no way were they exactly the same. And it's just a nice conversation to have because you like to get different points of views on what they remember from, back in 1999. Actually, if you go all the way back to 1998, what they remember, and then leading into 2014 or 2012, when the announcement was made that Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney, and that's really where the hype train began for Episode 7. And it's just the time frames. It's also nostalgic because then you're taken back to like 1999, and for me, pushing 50 now, I think back of when I was in my early 20s waiting for episode 1, and it's just kind of a nice nostalgic feeling. And then where I have a good feeling about the hype for The Force Awakens is that at that point in my life, I had a good group of good friends who were Star Wars fans, and we were able to enjoy it together. And that's what made it special.
Yeah, no, agree. And I've got similar stories, similar experiences that we'll be sharing as well. So we'll get into all that here in just a second. So before we get started, I want to say thank you to you guys, first off, our Patreon supporters, for all your support and for, again, continue to keep the show going and running. So I want to say a special thank you to first our now part of the tribe members. So that's Alex, Danny. Alex is with us tonight. Alex, Danny, Dante, Daz. I've got a Brad feeling. Jackson, Jacob, Josh, Mike Borda, Rita Reborn, Sharkman Dan, and Uncle Leon. And our top tier, which is our Delusions of Grandeur members, this is Rod Racing, who was on the show last week for Patreon. If you didn't catch that, you can see that. Steve and Rob. By the way, I did update. So after this is kind of a quick aside since this is a Patreon show. After we did that show, Rob was like, hey, man, can I ask a favor? And I thought, oh, my God, what is he going to ask me? And I said, yeah, sure. What is it? And he said, do you mind updating the credits so that my name says now this is Rod Racing the way I've written it here? And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. Real easy. So I actually updated the credits. So that's been updated. And so welcome, Rod. Sorry about that if it was a typo or whatever. But so thank you guys for your patronage there. And then also we've got YouTube membership. So, we're probably not going to ask. I don't want to ask anything more of the Patreon members. But for the public folks, or if you want to show additional support, you can sign up for YouTube memberships for $1. per month. And I just got a message too. This is, I don't know if this is going to show up. It does. Yeah. So Alex, a member for 10 months as a membership there on YouTube. So I didn't know if you realize that. If you want your money back, Alex, this is my brother, by the way. So let me know and I'll give you a $10 bill. So thank you. No, seriously, for being a subscriber for 10 months and getting the cool benefits that you get, which I think are just emoticons or I don't know, emojis or something. All right. Programming notes. So here's what we got coming up. So like we talked about next Sunday, we'll come back and do the part 2 to this, where we'll talk about all the stuff that were similar to stuff that we're going to talk about regarding the sequel trilogy and compare those two. This Tuesday, Chris will be back with me and we are going to be talking about Skeleton Crew 1 year later. So crazy to believe, crazy to think that it's already been 1 year since the Skeleton Crew came out. We've got a unique experience because you and I actually saw this together. We got tickets to go see that first.
I think it was the first 2 episodes that they had in the theater. Yep.
First 2. Yeah. So we drove out to, I think it was
it was the Cinemark in Pflugerville. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pflugerville. Yeah. Which is just north of Austin, but closer to where Chris lives, way far away from where I live. But we drove out there a year ago. It was back in December, I think, and saw it together and got some posters and stuff. So I want to talk about that experience. And we'll talk about, if you've never actually been a part of the 1 year later episodes, that is kind of a retrospective look on the episodes or maybe the series itself, talking about, everything that happened during that time, how significant it was to either pop culture, the Star Wars landscape going forth. What did it birth? And then we also kind of include the legacy piece of it. Like, where does it sit now? Where do you think it's going to sit, or where do we think it's going to sit over the next few years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Will it be looked upon favorably? Do you think there'll be people looking back and saying, oh man, that was such a great show? Or is it going to be still a point of contention as we've had with some stuff? So that'll be the 1 year later episode. Again, that'll be Tuesday night, 9 p.m. here on YouTube. That'll be a public show for everyone to view. I do want to mention just quickly too, that Lauren does have, if I'm not mistaken, I think Low Red Moon is out. It's either this week or next week. If I forget, I need to look at the date. I think it's this week. I think it's on Tuesday, February 3rd. So she will have her full review because the embargo is lifted at that point. So that full review, full breakdown of the latest Mike Chen novel. Great guy, friend of the show. So tune into that on Tuesday. I know she's already kind of gearing it up. So looking forward to that personally, because she does a really good job with those breakdowns. All right. One last thing before we get into our main topic. I teased that I had a major announcement coming in about the future of the show. Now, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. The show's still here. But I did want to say officially that Chris has joined the Cantina Cast as my co-host going forward. He's essentially replacing Jonesy, but he's not replacing him. He's just taking over that position. Because How can you replace Jonesy, right? But Chris is here. He's going to be on with us now full time. And I'm really excited about it because you and I have known each other for, I was doing the math. I think it's been about 5 or 6 years since I moved to Austin and went to the first Fan Force with you. And, so I've known you outside of work for this entire time. So I'm excited because we've gotten to really spend a lot of time together recently.
Right.
Hell, we went to a hockey game that neither one of us had ever been to a hockey game just recently and had a good time. But yeah, man, it's like having a good friend be a part of the show again. And so I'm just really happy and I'm thrilled that you said yes. And yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for joining
really
the show.
Appreciate you considering me for this. And this is really something that I know I'm going to enjoy a whole lot because I love speaking. I love talking Star Wars. I mean, normally I get on shows like this, podcasts, and I talk about what, the things I do in my professional career. And that has some good highlights to it, but that's not my passion. My passion is Star Wars, something that's been a part of my life for my entire life. And to get an opportunity to do it, and especially to do it with someone like you and the audience that we have, I am completely excited. So again, thank you, Albert, for bringing me on. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for us.
And we've had a couple of conversations now too about, like, for the most part, I would say everything is going to stay the same. But there are some things that I've been thinking about doing. So if you listen to the most recent Patreon episode, we talked a lot about celebration and going to Disney parks. That is an aspect of Star Wars that I don't really have a lot of experience in, but yet Chris does. And so I don't know that I'm ready to go jump into parks like once a month, but I do like the idea of going to more cons more frequently. So if I'm not at a con or we're not at a con together, then the idea would be, hey, we can maybe post some stuff from the Cantina Cast and do more con coverage, if you will. I'm really excited about that because that's something I do want to go to more often. So things like that, little changes to the content, what we're offering in terms of content, maybe coming down the road here. And I've kind of labeled this as volume 3 of the Cantina cast, volume 1 being Mike and Joe, volume 2 being Albert and Jonesy. And now we're moving into this new era of the Cantina cast, which is Albert and Chris. And so for the most part, like I said, most stuff will continue to stay the same. But yeah, we're looking for areas of opportunity. He's got some stuff that, he's got bandwidth to do some things that have been kind of lacking on the show for quite some time on the social media front and some other things. So you'll see some more changes coming up here recently or soon, hopefully. But I'm excited. This kind of launch us into a brand new era. And what better time to do this with, on the cusp of brand new Star Wars movies coming out. It feels like we're going into that new phase of movies and era, leaving the sequel trilogy. It seems to all kind of just line up perfectly. So again, thank you, Chris, for saying yes. And
yeah, same here. I'm totally excited. And again, I can't wait to see what we have in store. I know working together, we're going to knock it out the park. So I can't wait to move forward.
Awesome. All right.
Exactly.
Let's move forward, starting right now. All right. So we're going to talk about, all right. So as I was doing the show notes for this episode, it dawned on me that one of the reasons why I felt like we needed to break this up is I really want to spend a little bit more time talking about the dark times. We've talked about the dark times. I think we did an episode on it many years ago now. It might have been when Jonesy was, or it might have been during the Mike era. I'm not even sure anymore, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time, but we did talk about some of these things. So some of this may be kind of a refresher if you've been around the show for a long time, but I felt it was relevant. You almost kind of have to set the stage of where were we after 1985 leading up to the prequel trilogy, because it matters, right? When you talk about the anxiety, the anticipation, the hype, what we went through during the dark times really contributed to, I think, what we saw as all the hype and media that came out was a byproduct of those dark times. So I want to start by kind of your experience, because I don't know, we've not talked about this, but if you can roll the clock back to circa 1995, Return of the Jedi is over. The toy line is starting to fizzle out. There's no Star Wars really around outside of Ewoks and droids cartoons were still lingering. But for the most part, it felt like the dust had settled. Right. I felt like a lot of people had moved on. And certainly from Lucas's own mouth, he was done. He wasn't going to come back. He wasn't planning. I mean, he teased that he had done, 9, 12 movies, depending on, what time you asked him. But for the most part, it felt like that was kind of over and we would never see another Star Wars movie come to fruition again. And so it kind of led us into this dark era. But where were you, I guess, in 1985? What was life like for you leading up to that, to just call it Heir to the Empire, because that's kind of when it really stopped. But I want to talk about that experience, and then we can talk about exactly what really relit the fire, if you will, for Star Wars fans.
Well, I guess if we go all the way back to 1985, still being a child at that point, it was kind of, when you're a child and you have a favorite thing, or you have like a toy or a set of toys or a collection of toys that you like to play with. Your interest in those things lasts only as long as you have the media to support it. I know, especially in the 80s where, cartoons and whatnot, they were created just so that they could sell toys, right? 1985, pretty much the hype of Return of the Jedi had died down. And the one thing that hit me as a 8-9-year-old at the time was I put my Star Wars toys away in a box, knowing that because I wasn't playing with them much anymore, because the movie had died down. I think they had back then it took about maybe 18 to 24 months before a movie would be released on home video. I think I had just watched, we rented it, and I just watched Return of the Jedi at home. And, it was exciting and all that. But I think a couple of weeks after that, I noticed that, hey, I wasn't really playing with these toys anymore. And I was asked, because they were just kind of laying out there, to put them away. And I put them in a box, put them in the closet. And that's the last I saw of them for a while. That's probably what hit me entering into what we would call the dark times. I wasn't really into any of the books. I wasn't really into any of the comic books. For me, it was everything that I could watch. So we talked about, the movies, the Ewok movies, the droids, and the Ewok cartoon, although none of those, unless it was an actual movie, none of those other areas of content really held my interest. So like I wasn't out trying to buy the droids or the Ewok toys or anything like that. I really was fixated on, the original trilogy, the 3 movies. So that pretty much signaled the beginning of the dark times for me, which would go on for another 8 to 9 years until news started to flare up again.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, we talk about the dark times, and to put things into context, it really was the dark times of not having movies. Like, in just that whole, we had just come off the zeitgeist of the original trilogy, and we weren't prepared for what the zeitgeist was going to be of the prequel trilogy. But during that time, again, no movies. You did mention the VHS tapes. I left those off. I actually enjoyed those. I've got the VHS copies over here, and I watch them from time to time because they're hilarious. But there really wasn't anything out there. I mean, there was the Marvel comic, I think, was still running at that. It was kind of the very end of that. But I mean, that wasn't something that was hugely popular by that point. We had Bantha Tracks. Like if you were a hardcore Star Wars fan, you were subscribed to the Bantha Tracks. Yep. The new fan letter, newsletter stuff.
I definitely had Bantha Tracks and I don't know if you remember Bantha Tracks.
Hey, everyone. You've been listening to a preview of this Patreon exclusive episode. If you'd like to hear the full episode, as well as a huge back catalog of other Patreon exclusive material, head on over to patreon.com/CantinaCast and sign up for the We Are All the Republic tier at just $2 a month. That'll get you all of the audio episodes, or if video is your thing, please consider the This Is the Way tier at just $5 a month. There's also 2 higher tiers in Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur, which gets you a shout out at the start of every show, your name in the credits at the end, and more. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon members and all of our supporters, and may the Force be with you always.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.